If you could travel back in time, who would you most want to raise a glass with? Some would choose Li Bai, drunk in Chang'an, sword in hand, roaming the horizon. Others would pick Tao Yuanming, retreating to the countryside to pick chrysanthemums by the eastern fence. But in China, there's one name that, spanning more than 920 years, still warms countless hearts on every lonely night. Su Shi Su Dongpo. He was no mere bookish poet, but a rare Renaissance man of ancient and modern times. His verse stood atop the Song Dynasty. His calligraphy ranked among the 4 great masters of the song, and his painting pioneered the literati style. He understood fine food, turning cheap pork into a timeless delicacy. He knew engineering the Su Causeway he built still nourishes Huangzhou today. He mastered philosophy, seeing through life's lows to grasp a transcendent, death-defying serenity. He lived with unbridled zest, daring to love, daring to hate, daring to speak and act, becoming the very image of how countless people wish they could live. But fate loved to mock this genius, banishing him again and again to the ends of the earth. From bustling Bianjing, Kaifeng, to remote Huangzhou, from Lingnan's Huizhou to the savage wilds of Danzhou. Degraded repeatedly, exiled relentlessly, yet he never bowed his head. He always looked up at the sky with a smile, turning the vagabond's misery into poetry and distant horizons. So put down your busy work for a moment and travel with us across 1,000 years into that storm-tossed, glorious Northern Song Dynasty, into the deeply undulating yet radiantly brilliant life of Su Shi. In the 3rd year of Emperor Renzog's Jingyu reign, 1037 AD, in a small courtyard in Meishan, Sichuan, a baby boy came crying into the world. No one could have imagined that this child would one day captivate an entire age. His father, Su Xun, would later be enshrined among the 8 great prose masters of the Tang and Song. His younger brother, Su Ze, would share his renown and stand by him through life. Together, they were known as the 3 Sus, father and sons, all 3 among the 8 greats, a feat unprecedented and unrepeated. Meishan was steeped in literary culture. Every household took pride in scholarship. Young Su Shi, it is said, was not a diligent student at first, even somewhat playful, and only truly applied himself to his books after the age of 20. But his learning was never driven by external pressure. It came from a deep, heartfelt love of reading. One detail in particular laid the foundation for Su Shi's entire life. When he was a child, his mother, Lady Chang, taught him herself. One day, they came to the biography of Fan Pang in the Book of the Later Han. Fan Pang was an upright, incorruptible official of the late Eastern Han, unyielding even unto death and eventually martyred. Lady Chang finished reading and sighed. Young Su Shi looked up and asked, "Mother, Fan Pang was a hero. When I grow up, can I become a man like Fan Pang?" Looking into her son's resolute eyes, Lady Chang answered solemnly, "If you can become a man like Fan Pang, could I not become a mother like Fan Pang's mother?" That single sentence planted a seed deep in Su Shi's heart. The conviction to be unyielding and true to one's own heart became the unbreakable backbone of his life, a faith that no matter how many hardships came later, never once wavered. When Su Shi was 20 years old, his father Su Xun took him and his young brother Su Zhe from Meishan to the capital to sit for the imperial examinations. It was the 2nd year of the Jiayu reign, 1057 AD, an examination that would go down in history. The chief examiner was Ouyang Xu, the undisputed leader of the literary world. The deputy examiner was Mei Yaochen. After the essays were submitted, Mei Yaochen excitedly brought a policy paper to Ouyang Xu and said, "Sir, this essay is elevated in conception and vigorous in style, a masterpiece rarely seen." Ouyang Xu took it and read it. The more he read, the more impressed he became, and he immediately wanted to rank it first. But then he hesitated. The style was so mature and sophisticated that it seemed like the work of his own student, Zheng Gong. To avoid any suspicion of favoritism, he reluctantly placed the essay second. When the results were announced, everyone was stunned. The author was not Zheng Gong, but a young man from Sichuan that nobody had ever heard of Su Shi. Upon learning this, Huangzhou felt no regret at all. On the contrary, he was overjoyed. "Reading Su Shi's writing is pure delight," he cried. "I should step aside and let him rise ahead of me." In no time, Su Shi's name spread throughout the capital. But just as he was about to embark on his official career, terrible news arrived. His mother, Lady Cheng, had passed away. By custom, he was obliged to resign from any post and observe 3 years of mourning. The boy who had just stepped into the spotlight had to return to Meishan to mourn his mother. Little did he know that these 3 years of withdrawal were only the beginning of a long and bumpy official road. After the mourning period ended, Su Shi returned to Bianjing Kaifeng and officially embarked on his official career. There he met the first important woman in his life, his first wife, Wang Fu. Wang Fu was exceptionally intelligent, well-read, and gracious. Often, after Su Shi entertained guests, she would quietly analyze the character of those who had visited, who was sincere and worthy of friendship, who was merely currying favor. More than once, she warned him to keep his distance from petty and treacherous men. One telling detail: whenever Su Shi stumbled while reciting a passage from memory, Wang Fu would softly whisper a prompt. Surprised, he would ask, "How do you know?" She would answer with a smile, "I happen to know a little about poetry and classics as well." In those days, his official career went smoothly, his marriage was loving, and his bond with his brother was close and warm. It was the most untroubled and blessed period of Su Shi's entire life. But fate was merciless. In 1065, Wang Fu suddenly fell ill and died at only 27 years old. Su Shi was heartbroken with grief. With his own hands, he planted many pine trees by his wife's grave. 10 years later, one night in Mizhou, he dreamed of his departed wife. Waking from the dream, he wrote what is arguably the most heartbreaking elegy in Chinese literary history, Riverside Town, a dream on the night of the 20th day of the first month in the year, Yi Mao, 1075. 10 years dead and living dim and vast. I do not think of her, yet I cannot forget. A lonely grave 1,000 miles away, to whom can I speak of my desolation? We gaze at each other in silence, only 1,000 lines of tears. No ornate language, only endless longing poured out. Even today, whenever we read those lines, we can still feel the depth of that love. His wife's death was only the first heavy punch fate delivered him. The next blow would nearly take his life. In 1069, Emperor Shenzong of Song ascended the throne and appointed Wang Anshi to carry out the Xining reforms. The original intent of the reforms was to strengthen the state and benefit the people, but in practice, they became severely distorted. The Green Sprouts Law turned into forced lending, the conscription law piled on layer after layer of burdens, and the common people suffered unbearably. Su Shi saw these abuses with his own eyes and wrote frank memorials opposing the reforms. This made enemies of both Wang Anshi and the new party. Ostracized at every turn, Su Shi voluntarily requested a post outside the capital. In 1071, he was appointed assistant magistrate of Huangzhou. The lush mountains and clear waters of Huangzhou healed him. There he wrote his eternal masterpiece. The shimmering water gleams fair on sunny days. The misty mountains look wonderful in the rain. Westlake may be compared to Shizi, the beauty. In light or heavy, makeup always charming and fine. After his 3-year term in Hangzhou, he was transferred to Mizhou, then Chuzhou, then Huzhou. In Mizhou, he wrote 2 immortal works. One was the elegy for Wang Fu Riverside Town. The other was the inaugural poem of the bold and unrestrained school of CI poetry Riverside Town, hunting at Mizhou. Old man talks of youthful frenzy. Left hand a yellow hound, right arm a gray falcon. I will draw my carved bow like a full moon, turn to the northwest, and shoot the celestial wolf. It was also during the mid-autumn festival night in Mizhou, missing his younger brother Su Zhe, that he wrote Prelude to Water Melody. How long will the bright moon appear? May we live long and share the moon's beauty across 1,000 miles. These words have become the most heartfelt song of longing for everyone separated by distance, for 1,000 years and more. In 1079, Su Shi was transferred to the post of prefect of Huzhou. No one could have foreseen that a disaster of epic proportions was waiting for him there. Following custom, Su Shi submitted a memorial thanking the emperor for his appointment. In it, he wrote phrases such as "too foolish to fit with the times" and "old and unlikely to stir up trouble" routine, formulaic language. But new party officials like Li Ding and Shu Dan took his words out of context, accusing him of satirizing the court and slandering the new reforms. This was the infamous Crow Terrace poetry case, Wutai Xian in history. Su Shi was arrested and escorted back to the capital, then thrown into the prison of the censorate. The censorate compound was filled with cypress trees where crows gathered in great numbers, hence the name Crow Terrace. Behind bars, he was subjected to brutal interrogation and at one point believed he would surely die. He even wrote poems bidding farewell to his family. What was even more chilling, most of the friends who had once shared wine and discussed literature with him fell silent. Only a few risked their own safety to plead for mercy. At the critical moment, Empress Dowager Cao, grandmother of Emperor Shenzong, personally intervened. "The Su brothers are talents worthy of being chancellors or generals," she said. "They cannot be put to death." Wang Anshi, who had already retired, also wrote a letter. "How can a sage reign allow the slaughter of a man of talent?" In the end, Emperor Shenzong commuted Su Shi's death sentence and exiled him to the post of Deputy Military Training Officer of Huangzhou with no authority to sign official documents. A powerless, idle post-exile in all but name. In the first month of 1080, Su Shi arrived in Huangzhou. It was a remote, impoverished little town. Without salary or lodging, he could only take shelter in a temple. Later, with help from friends, he applied to the authorities for a piece of abandoned hillside land east of the city wall. There, he cleared the ground, planted crops, and lived off his own labor. From that time on, he gave himself a new name, Dongpo Zhuxi, the lay Buddhist of the eastern slope. The change from Su Shi to Su Dongpo was not merely a shift in name, but a spiritual metamorphosis. He let go of fame, power, and profit, and began to truly grasp the essence of life. Those 4 years in Huangzhou were the lowest of his life, yet spiritually, they were the most brilliant. It was here that he wrote Remembering the Beauty of New, reminiscing the past at Red Cliff. The great river flows eastward, sweeping away thousands of ages of heroes. Life is but a dream. Let me pour a libation to the river and the moon. He also wrote the first ode on the Red Cliff and the second ode on the Red Cliff. In the first ode, gazing at the mighty river, he penetrated the mystery of life and death. Only the clear breeze over the river and the bright moon among the hills, when my ear hears them, they become sound. When my eye meets them, they become color. Nothing forbids our enjoyment of them. They can never be exhausted. They are the boundless treasury of the Creator. In that moment, he understood. True wealth is not power or possessions, but a heart open and free. One more story best reveals the true character of Su Dongpo. In Huangzhou, he lived in poverty. Pork was cheap and inexpensive, something the high officials disdained to eat. But he devoted himself to cooking it, simmering it slowly over a gentle fire until it became rich and succulent without being greasy. He even wrote a hymn to pork. That is the origin of today's famous Dongpo pork. You see, even in the depths of despair, he could find joy in the ordinary and turn a bitter life into poetry. In 1084, Su Shi finally left Huangzhou. Soon afterward, Emperor Shenzong passed away. Grand Empress Dowager Gao of the Gao clan ruled from behind a curtain, and the old party returned to power. Su Shi was recalled to Bianjing, Kaifeng, where he served successively as Heinlein academician and drafter of imperial edicts, stepping into the core of power. But was he the kind of man who would fall silent just because he had switched sides? Clearly not. The old party wanted to completely abolish Wang Anshi's new laws. Su Shi, however, said, the new laws have many flaws, but some of them actually benefit the people, the exemption law, for example. They should not be entirely discarded. These words angered the bigwigs of the old party. You were brought back into office because you opposed the new laws alongside us, and now you speak up for them? Su Shi answered calmly, I belong to no faction. I simply speak on the merits of each issue for the sake of the people, for the sake of the court. Thus, the new party hated him, and the old party distanced itself from him. Once again, trapped in a difficult position, he voluntarily requested a post outside the capital and was appointed prefect of Huangzhou. This was Su Shi's second time in Huangzhou. By now, he was an experienced prefect, and he accomplished a deed that would echo through history: the construction of the Su Causeway. The West Lake had suffered years of neglect, choked with silt and mud, its water quality deteriorating, severely affecting agriculture and the water supply. Su Shi led the local people in dredging the lake. He took the silt dug from the bottom and built a long causeway that ran north to south across the lake, planting lotus flowers, hibiscus, and willows along both sides. The people named this causeway the Su Causeway in his honor. To this day, spring dawn at the Su Causeway remains the foremost of the 10 scenes of West Lake. The good times did not last long. Grand Empress Dowager Gao passed away. Emperor Zhezong took personal rule and reinstated the new party, which launched a purge against the old party. Su Shi was exiled to Huizhou in present-day Guangdong. By then, he was already 61 years old. Lingnan, the region around Huizhou, was shrouded in miasmatic vapors and regarded as a savage wilderness. Yet Su Shi did not complain. Instead, he was captivated by the beautiful scenery and exotic fruits and wrote, "At the foot of Luofu Mountain, spring lasts all year. Loquats and kumquats ripen one after another. If I can eat 300 lychees a day, I would gladly stay a southerner forever." These lines infuriated the prime minister, Zhang Dun. Zhang had meant to make Su Shi suffer, but instead found the poet living in evident delight. What truly set Zhang's teeth on edge was another short poem, writing casually, containing the line, "The master's spring slumber is sweet." Zhang Dan gnashed his teeth. "You like your sweet spring slumber, do you? Then I'll exile you even farther." Where to? Danzhou, on Hainan Island. In the Song Dynasty, this was a true land of no return. Most people from the Central Plains who came here could hardly survive. In 1097, the 61-year-old Su Shi crossed the sea and arrived in Danzhou. He had no lodging. He had to cut wood himself and build a thatched hut. There was little to eat, no proper clothing, and he had to endure the miasmic vapors. But he did not sink into despair. Finding that there were no schools in the area and that the local children were illiterate, this exiled old man took the initiative to set up a school, teaching the children to read and write. Under Su Shi's guidance, Danzhou blossomed with literary culture and later produced the first recorded imperial scholar's Yinshi in its history. He himself wrote, "I am by origin a man of Hainan, born by chance in western Sichuan. Suddenly crossing the sea to come here is no more than a distant journey." He had come to regard Danzhou as his second homeland. In 1100, Emperor Huizong ascended the throne and granted a general amnesty. Su Shi, now 64, crossed the sea to return north. Gazing at the boundless ocean, he wrote lines that have resounded through the ages. "9 deaths in this southern wilderness, I hold no grudge. This wandering has been the most wondrous journey of my life." Even after surviving countless perils, he felt no bitterness for the experience of exile. He declared, had been the most extraordinary adventure of his entire existence. On his journey north, Su Shi's body, already ravaged by years of exile, was beset with illness. He traveled on to Zhenjiang, where he wrote a poem summing up his entire life. "My heart is like a tree reduced to ashes. My body like a boat without a mooring. If you ask me of my life's achievements, Huangzhou, Huizhou, Danzhou, not the bustling capital Beijing, not the beautiful Huangzhou, but the 3 most destitute, most difficult places where he had been exiled." On the 28th day of the 7th month in 1101, Su Shi passed away in Changzhou, ending his 65 years of life. To the very end, he never saw his younger brother Su Zhe again. In his eulogy, Su Zhe wrote, My elder brother Zizan, Su Shi, his talent surpassed all under heaven. His fame filled every corner of the land. In all his life, one of a kind, without equal in the four seas. More than 920 years have passed. The splendor of the Northern Song Dynasty has long faded, and those emperors and ministers who once wielded power over the land have long been buried in the dust of history. But Su Shi, he still lives among us. He is there on every mid-autumn night in the line. May we live long and share the moon's beauty across 1,000 miles. He is there in every plate of fragrant, braised Dongpo pork. He is there in every bold and free-spirited poem. On every disheartened, lonely night, he softly says to you, "It's all right. Life is bound to have its rough patches. Why not learn from me?" With a bamboo staff and straw sandals, I move lighter than on horseback. A straw cloak through mist and rain, such is my life. I'll face them with ease.